of Money with Santosh Sirur.
Hello and welcome to another episode of The Sound of Money. On this episode of The Sound of Money, we talk about mutual funds, and we have a very special guest joining us from Mumbai. We have Juzer Tambawalla, who is Director, Sales Enablement at Franklin Templeton, India. He is a seasoned asset management leader with over 2 decades of experience. Hi, Juzer, and welcome to this episode of The Sound of Money.
Hey, pleasure, Santosh, and good to be here on the platform.
Thank you. So, Juzer, my first question to you, since you are from the MF industry, do you see a broader growth on the mutual fund industry over the years?
Oh, for sure. So I think from if I recollect when I joined the industry close to around about in 2000. I think we were at less than perhaps 1 lakh crores, right? I mean, today we're at 46 lakh crores. Obviously, the growth has been quite phenomenal over the years. That growth has actually got accelerated significantly over the last perhaps 8-10 years. But I think it's important that we keep this in perspective because, one is to obviously be happy and enjoy and be proud of the growth that the industry has collectively achieved. But I think I always like to keep my eye on the larger opportunity that exists, in the future, right? Because I mean, if you look at a country like India, at 1.5 billion people, there's like close to about 5-6 crore people who actually pay tax in the country. Well, we're at like approximately 4 crore investors, right, in the industry. So if I had to like kind of do unique investors in the industry, that number is quite low. But I think that the larger opportunity to get a lot more retail investors to benefit from a professional actually managing your money, I think that opportunity is really very large, and that perhaps that's what I would really so as much as I would take great amount of pride in being part of the industry and being part of this growth journey, but I think the opportunity is just far too big.
Yeah, but when you say this opportunity, is this opportunity more in the tier 2, tier 3 cities of India?
Yeah, I think I think it's I would actually say in general. I think even when it comes to a large city like Mumbai or Delhi, right? I mean, even today, if I look at just the larger piece of the asset pie, nearly 50% of that money still comes from Mumbai and Delhi. Okay, the next 13 cities, probably contribute around about maybe another 20%. So if you look at 70% of the money still is restricted to the top 15 cities in the country, and then obviously there is a really, really long tail. But I think that the next phase of, if you look at all parameters are suggesting that the next phase of real economic growth really is coming from those smaller towns, right? That the audiences over there are actually getting better quality of education and therefore better potential to make money. And if you're making some money, you'll obviously try and save and invest some bit of that money. So I think it would be fantastic to see. I mean, I think a lot of the India is participating in the mutual fund industry. I think I would love to see the Bharat come and join the industry. Yeah.
You've seen this industry for over 2 decades now. So when you started and now, in terms of the behavioral pattern of the investor, do you see, because typically India being a very savings, conservative economy, go more into fixed deposits and that kind of investment, assured returns. Probably the fact that they also had the impact, or probably they had the learnings from the mistakes or whatever unfortunate incidents of the Harshad Mehta scam. So do you see the kind of there's a marked paradigm shift in the behavior?
Oh, for sure. So I think, if you look at it, maybe at a time when, my father was, actively in the working force, we've all seen fixed deposit rates at like 13, 14, 15%, right? If you're going to get assured returns at that level, why would you want to come and invest in a variable investment product like a mutual fund? But I think what really has happened is that as interest rates have come down, obviously that's had an impact on assured return products, and people are now really realizing the demon of inflation, which perhaps a lot of people at that point in time just really didn't bother about. And now if you're saying that, well, if I put my money in a fixed deposit, okay, which is giving me what, perhaps maybe 6% return, I take 35%, 30% off tax. I'm pretty much left with what, really around about 4% of
Yeah.
net
Yeah.
return. And if my inflation, my consumer inflation is going to be at 5-6%, then I'm
Hmm.
actually making negative returns, right? So I think
True.
people are now really understanding that. They also understand the fact that risk is good.
Hmm.
Okay,
Hmm.
as long as you can manage that risk, you
Yeah.
understand your own risk profile, because not taking any risk in any kind of business, whether it is the mutual funds
Yeah.
or whether it is your own personal investments, is not a good idea, really, right?
Yeah.
So I think people are getting to terms with those ideas and those concepts, and therefore are now ready to say that, well, okay, fine, because I have a continuous stream of, I
Yeah.
keep saying this to a lot of my friends, that if you see the larger population of the world, there are more people who are actually working, who have
Yeah.
a certain fixed amount of salary which comes to them every month,
Yeah.
as compared to most people who are doing business. So I'm saying, if you have regular source of money coming your way, then you should be in a position to put some money aside to
Yeah.
invest, right?
Yeah.
Save
True.
some money and then obviously invest that money.
Yeah.
And I think coming back to the whole demon of inflation, because people are now understanding that
Hmm.
piece, they're saying that, okay, fine, you know what, it's not really a bad idea to maybe in some periods of time see a certain
Yeah.
correction, and therefore there's a certain loss of money, but over a period of time, obviously, that money is growing significantly, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And also, do you think with whatever happened in 1992 with the scam, and then the SEBI coming in, stepping in, making it very difficult, so there is a very strong framework or a very strong foundation, and now investors are pretty assured that, even though you may say eventually subject to market returns, having said that, there is a strong framework to protect the investor.
I absolutely agree. And I think SEBI has done a splendid job, right? Over the last, well, 2-3 decades,
Yeah,
of making sure that you have a governance framework put in
yeah,
place, in with market participants, which makes sure that the investor is protected. Now, again, when I say investor is protected, it's not about saying that the investor money is protected, because the
mm,
investor money goes through the vagaries of the market.
yeah,
Okay, and how economies today obviously are intertwined. So you
yeah,
you obviously have a Ukraine conflict obviously impacting even Indian markets,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
But at least if you have a proper governance framework in place, which then
mm,
makes gives the investor the comfort that, barring the vagaries of the market, I'm not going to lose money because of somebody not managing my money well, or
yeah,
trying to kind of hoodwink me in some
yeah,
kind or the other. So I
mm,
think that phase perhaps is over, and I think investor confidence in just the governance measures that SEBI has put in is
mm,
extremely high, extremely high. So I
mm,
think all of this has really contributed in some way or the other to say that, well, okay, fine, I'm going to trust and go to industries like mutual funds,
yeah,
which do give me a variability of return,
yeah.
but I know that the money is actually going to be managed by an expert.
That's good. As an industry expert, and have you also seen the new age investor coming in, as in terms of a lot of fintech options, investment
lots of
options?
lots of
Yeah,
that. So I think if you see, if you look at numbers, a large percentage of these new investors who've come into the industry over the last, say, maybe 5-6 years, are actually the millennials, right? I mean, they've come in to the industry in a big way. Obviously, the fintech platforms have brought in a huge amount of convenience,
yeah,
right, for the retail investor, because I don't think any mutual fund company in the country now prints as many application forms that they would have printed at one point in time, right? Most of these transactions actually happen completely online. So I think uh, uh, that's definitely seen a shift. What I do see this as a concern,
mm,
is that I think uh, a lot of these new age investors who do come in, I think, are you know are lacking in some level, lacking the patience, because I've
mm,
always believed that making money out of money is a very boring job, right?
yeah, yeah,
If you want adrenaline rush, I think that you should go to a roller coaster and just
yeah,
enjoy yourself and
right,
get that adrenaline rush.
yeah,
But if you're seriously looking at creating wealth, it's an absolutely boring
yeah,
process, and
mm,
the higher the level of boredom, the higher is the probability of you making money. right?
Definitely.
And I think that concept, honestly, hasn't sunk in as deeply as we would like to kind of, at least I would like to kind of
Mm,
believe that it should have. Because
mm,
even today, when I look at numbers, nearly 60% of SIPs, I mean, as much as today SIPs has become the big mantra, we're
yeah.
getting close to what, 15,500 crores every month as throughput, but nearly 60% of these SIPs actually stop within 2 years' time.
Wow.
Right
But
now, that
what is the reason for that? When you
the
say,
yeah,
it's
I think the reason is the fact that people just don't believe. I mean, patience is a premium virtue, right? I mean, people just don't have that patience to say that, well, every drop in the market, every correction that comes in the market is actually a huge opportunity to buy,
mm,
right?
yeah.
Unlike, and unfortunately, what really happens is that, well, the maximum amount of money that you see coming into the industry is when markets are at an all-time high. Now,
Mm,
yes, I'm not saying that you should not invest. I mean, if you have a view that, principally markets are going to be
going
higher
up.
in 5
Yeah.
7 10 years time, any time
Yeah.
is a good time to really
Yeah.
invest.
Yeah.
But is market correction a good time to withdraw money? The answer is a categoric no, and I think that's what's really happening. Because I mean, in the past, I remember when I've helped my friends kind of start up SIPs, I
Yeah.
would pretty much get a call every 2 3 months. Hey, you know what? I put some 3,000 rupees. It's 2,999. What happened to that one? Now, my point is that how much is that 1 rupee, 10 rupee, 25 rupees
Make a
going to make a
difference.
difference to
Yeah.
your life? The answer is
Mm,
nothing,
yeah.
right? Today, I mean, when you go to buy a pair of Levi's jeans, you're probably spending 5,000 rupees, right? And
Yeah.
today, for some unfortunate reason, after 3 months' time, if you got yourself hooked onto some piece of furniture and the
Yeah.
jeans tears, what do? I mean, you say that, okay, fine, I'll
Yeah.
probably darn it or I'll move on, right?
Mm,
But when it comes to money, every rupee is then accounted for. That, hey, you know what, I put in 3,000 rupees, 3 months 1,000 rupees, but today it's 2,990. What
mm,
happened to the 10 rupees? I said, really? I mean, if it
yeah.
was even 3,010, would you
Yeah.
be what would
Would
you
you
do with the
say,
10
yeah,
rupees?
yeah,
Nothing.
exactly.
I
Yeah.
mean, you would
Yeah.
probably just leave it the way it
Yeah.
is, right? So I think pe- people just don't get that piece. Like, I mean, everybody's talking about, I mean, if you look at it, oh, look at Warren Buffett. He's a hundred
Yeah.
hundred billion dollars.
Yeah.
But think about his journey of investing.
Yeah.
It
It
is,
is. Yeah.
he's what? He's 90 apparently. He's
92.
been
Yeah.
in 92. He's been investing for what, 75 years, right?
Yeah.
And I was reading somewhere that you know perhaps when he reached the age of 70 or 75, he didn't have that $100 billion.
Yeah.
He was
Yeah.
probably at
It,
20 30 billion dollars. It's only in the last
the last
20
odd
25
years. Yeah.
years that that money
Where the
has got,
benefit of compounding
yeah,
helped
that benefit
tremendously.
of compounding has been tremendous, which has actually resulted in he creating this kind of wealth.
Yeah.
But people just don't get it, so
Yeah.
it's, you want to see a Warren Buffett, you want to
Yeah.
see a Tendulkar, you want to
Yeah.
see a whoever, right? I mean,
Yeah.
whoever is your icon. But do you really want to know what goes under that?
Yeah.
That effort nobody wants to take. That's
Yeah,
the problem.
absolutely, absolutely. What is very important, I believe, and I'm sure you guys, the industry, have made tremendous effort is on investor education. You know,
Yes.
uh, what kind of additional efforts could be done, and how are you guys reaching out to the guys on the ground?
I think the investor education. I mean, I used to sit on the investor education committee for many years
Hmm.
on Amphi, and I think kudos first to the regulator for the entire initiative of keeping 2 basis points aside,
Yeah,
giving 1 basis point to a central pool with Amphi, and it's given us actually the firepower
yeah.
to really spread the message of mutual funds sahi, right?
Hmm.
But I think a lot continues, needs to be done. For example, I think if you're going to talk to Bharat, you're going to talk to Bharat in in their
Yeah,
language.
then
Yeah,
yeah,
you
yeah,
can't talk to them just in English. Now,
yeah,
uh, today, if you see, for example, 90%, 99% of presentations that get done in the industry get done in English, right? Offer documents, fact
yeah,
sheets, everything is really in
yeah,
English. Yes, translation does happen, but does happen depending on a need basis. Well, some investor or some distributor comes and tells you that, well, I'm doing
yeah,
this, give me. So I think our ability to talk to the Bharat in the language that Bharat understands needs to significantly improve. Now that requires resources, that
yeah.
requires time, effort,
Hmm.
all of that, and I
Hmm.
get that. But
Hmm.
I think that's a gap that over a period of time, when you asked about what more needs to be done, I think that's a space clearly that a lot more needs to be really done, because I just think that, just because somebody doesn't speak English doesn't mean that that
Yeah.
person is not intelligent or is not interested in how to manage money and so on and so forth. I mean, it'd be a
Yeah.
really short-sighted view to take,
Yeah.
if you look at it that way. So, but if you can talk to that person in that language, I think it's important. I think a second very important thing is that I think our financial literacy program
Mm.
needs to start at a very young age,
Yeah. Mm.
right? So, I mean, I know the government has implemented the new education policy, and I don't have the exact details of it, but I do see a lot of private institutions now making sure that they have a course on finance, on
Mm.
understanding taxation, on understanding, different kinds of investment products, okay,
Yeah.
understanding the power of compounding, so on and so forth. I think
Mm.
that journey needs to begin much earlier,
Yeah.
rather than my generation actually got to that journey in a stumbling manner, right? To say
Yeah.
that,
Of
hey,
course. Yeah.
girte sambhalte, you
Yeah.
can
We
kind of,
managed.
you managed it and you learned something, correct?
Yeah.
But I think for the next phase of growth to really happen in a sustained manner, that
Yeah.
journey on education needs to happen much, much earlier.
Yeah, in fact, in one of my episodes, Miss Monica Hallan was a part of the episode, and she too has been really trying to
Yeah.
advocate literacy. In fact, one of my suggestions has been that most of these organizations, when they have their HR, the day ones for the new joinees, one
Yeah.
must have an hour, at least an hour-long session on awareness, and then they
Yes.
can, at least then it's up to the guy who wants to sign up for a SIP or not. But at
No,
least it should start
absolutely.
begin
Yeah.
with that.
And I mean, this is obviously largely required, in organizations which are in the non-financial services or
Yeah,
non-financial businesses, right? So
definitely.
I mean, like the Unilevers or the PNGs or
Yeah,
the Tajes of the world
yeah,
need to, which have large workforces. Look at Tata Motors, for example. I
yeah.
mean, it must be having a large workforce.
True.
That education needs to happen. It's like how, in the global corporate world, you have these WPTs, to say that, well, you keep,
Yeah,
sending them to
yeah,
the employees, so that
yeah,
you drill it down
yeah,
to the in the employee, and you need to do that even when it comes to personal finance, because
yeah,
it's very, very important.
yeah. And
I mean,
yeah.
think about what happened in COVID, right? It
Mm,
caught you unawares. A lot of people
yeah,
lost their jobs, right? But today, I think the generation will think, when, I mean, if you experienced COVID and you've got probably 30 years of working life ahead of you, you now will think very hard to say that, hey, you know what, this job may not be permanent,
true.
right? Industries could change, requirements could change, right?
Yeah,
You may be very good in your
yeah.
work, and nobody's kind of, saying that. It's like I'm sure there will be people who are very good typists, right? But
Mm,
the whole concept of the typewriter completely
yeah, it's
evaporated,
gone.
right?
Correct.
But what are you going to do? How well prepared are you for that? I think
Yeah,
that's very important for people to understand. And to get well prepared, I think a very good understanding of personal finance, managing your money, making sure that you've got a pool of money which is there, which is, for an emergency, some amount of risk that you can afford to take. Please take that
yeah.
risk, because that's the only way to grow.
True, true. In fact, you mentioned about India or even Bharat for that matter, but I'll go one step ahead. Even NRIs who I have come across, the sense of investment is still an FCNR or an FD. I'm like,
Yeah, it's about, yeah,
it's
because it's
still
about
not.
just how
Yeah,
efficiently am I going to transfer money from Dubai or from England.
exactly.
That's not the point. That's really
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
that's an easy kill right now,
Yeah,
right?
and if at all there's a talk of a mutual fund, it's all about, oh, okay, 50,000 I'd invested and
No, but
something. Oh, let's
Santosh, my wife's entire family is in the US, right? And when I talk to my brother-in-laws, they've all been working there for like 10, 15, 20 years. But when it comes to money, they are clueless.
yeah, amazing. I mean, I
Absolutely,
can't
yeah,
believe, yeah,
it's absolutely clueless, right? And I sometimes wonder that. I said, guys, uh, I mean, if God bless, you'll probably live till 80, 90.
yeah,
You will
yeah,
not
yeah,
work beyond 60. What are you going to do?
true,
How are you going to survive? I mean, it's a scary thought. Yeah.
yeah. I had a question to you regarding the long-term changes in the industry. Where do you see the vision heading? What's the vision really for the mutual fund industry in India with so much of
Yeah.
money coming in, right?
Yeah. So I think couple of things clearly is what the industry will want to push for, right? One, I said, it's about making sure that the money starts coming in now and a significant chunk starts coming. Today, there is money coming in, but in a trickle from the beyond 15 cities, right?
Yeah.
So if you want that, so that's the one important thing. I think the other important thing is I believe that as newer and newer players come into the industry, they will bring their own ideas. Okay, there will be positive disruption that will come about in the
Yeah.
industry, right? And that's good, right?
Yeah.
That's very, very good because it will help the existing players to really start evolving, their
Yeah.
business strategies, which is good for the customer. I think the third very important thing is that, and I've gone ad nauseum speaking about this over the last many years, is that the onboarding process in the industry is still a little cumbersome when it comes to
Yeah.
a retail investor. So
True.
today, I think I could start an ICICI Direct, online trading account online, but for me to start a mutual fund account, if I was a first time investor, there is a fair amount of steps that I really need to take. I mean, I know that there's an in-person verification step that can be taken. Some of these steps do get taken online, but it's not a very easy process. Let's put it that way, right? And
Yeah.
I think if that gets simplified, you will have a tremendous amount. I mean, the amount of people who come to our website who try and invest, but then through the process just kind of peter off is quite significant, right?
Yeah.
And if
Yeah.
I had to collectively look at it for the 40 mutual fund players, it will be a very
Yeah.
large number.
Yeah.
So I
True.
think onboarding process needs to get much more simpler.
Yeah.
I think the fact that we should be in a position to communicate, and that's really going to grow the industry. Positive disruption from newer players coming in. I mean, if you look at the US markets today, look at the US mutual fund industry, a significant chunk of it is today in passives. In India, that number is still at approximately 15, 16%, right, of the total market. But is there a play for passives here in an investment industry? I think the answer is a categoric yes, right? And that perhaps, because if you look at it that way, if you look at passives here in India, it's retail participation is not that much. I mean, there's the
Yeah.
EPFO, which is putting in large chunks of
Yeah.
money
Yeah.
into passive funds in ETFs, but retail participation is not that much. And I think that over a period of time will increase and change for sure.
True. True. One last question before we leave. What would actually attract more investors in future? Is there anything that probably the industry can?
I think if we must try and learn from some of the online players, like for example, and the Amazons and the
Yeah.
Flipkarts and the eBays of the world. I think they've just made the whole experience so convenient, right? And that's what it is. See, we're a service industry. Unlike, at least if you go to a restaurant or if you go to a hotel, they are also service industries. But at least you can taste the food, you can experience the stay. In
Yeah.
case of if a financial product, there's no touch and feel, right?
Mm.
But if you can make that entire process convenient,
Yeah.
okay, which is simple for any type of investor to come in.
Yeah.
Today, a lot of the people who are buying stuff from the Flipkarts of the world are not from Bombay alone. They're from the length and breadth of this
Of
country.
course.
And the
Yeah.
reason they can do that is because
The experience is
the
easier to. Yeah.
experience is much more easier. It's not time consuming, right? And I think if once that happens, and I think it will happen, because think about it, that there was a time when you could only fill up a physical application form and give it.
Yeah.
There was a time that if you had to do an SIP, you'd actually give 25 checks or 50
Yeah.
checks,
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
1,000 rupees each.
Yeah.
Those days are over,
Gone.
right?
Yeah.
Nobody does that, and that's progress in the absolute right direction. And I think that as the factor of convenience goes up, you
Yeah.
will have a lot more people coming to the industry for sure.
Yeah. And with Aadhaar and with OTP and all the fintech,
Right,
it's
and people are now
extremely
used to
seamless.
it, right? So people are very
Absolutely.
used to
Yeah.
getting OTPs on the phone,
Yeah.
punching 5 or 6 numbers on an
Yeah.
online platform, and just going ahead with the
Yeah.
transaction. So I think if you're an existing mutual fund investor, the process is now very simple,
Yeah. Definitely.
right? So if
Yeah.
I've done my KYC and I'm an
Yeah.
existing investor, the process is very, very simple. It takes me barely 2 or 3 minutes to kind of invest in a fund. But if you are attracting newer investors, so if I have to make this 4 crores to become 50 crores,
Yeah.
right, then I think convenience will
Yeah.
play a
Yeah.
very, very important part. Otherwise, it will not happen. It will not happen.
Absolutely. Yeah. Juzer Tambawalla, Director Sales Enablement at Franklin Templeton, India. Thank you so much for joining us on this
Pleasure.
episode of The Sound of Money.
Pleasure. All the best. Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me.
And with that, we come to the end of this episode of The Sound of Money with me, Santosh Sirur, and Juzer. Thank you so much for once again for joining in on The Sound of Money. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Sound of Money with Santosh Sirur.